We've talked about the three hearts. We've talked about the three bodies. We've talked about these three pillars of inner work, integrated inner work. There's another triad that I want to talk about this morning as a way of preparing us all to move forward into our next thing. And in Buddhism, they call it the three jewels. I don't know if you're familiar with this idea in Buddhism. In Buddhism, they call the three jewels these three essential elements of being on the spiritual path. In Buddhism, they identify the three jewels as the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Right? So, this isn't Buddhism, but I think that there's something very valuable in that, and so I want to talk about it a little bit in terms of like how it could work for us. So in Buddhism, the Buddha is like kind of like God. Buddhists don't believe in God, but the Buddha in that triad represents that kind of ultimate reality. In some Buddhist communities, the Buddha jewel also represents the teacher, also represents like the master who's in charge of the community or whatever. And also the ultimate reality, they're together. I think that that's a little problematic in and of itself and has shown itself to be so empirically. We'll talk about that. Anyway, so Buddha, the Dharma in Buddhism is the teachings and the practices that come through Buddhism. The Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the other teachings, and then the practices that are essential to integrate those teachings. That's what they call the Dharma. And the Sangha are the other people in the community, the community of seekers. For us, we change it a little bit. And so the Buddha, if there's that ultimate reality, for us, it's the Kundalini Shakti. It's the actual directly experienced inner divine pulsation. And to whatever extent that gives us access to some sort of higher power, but not in an intellectual way. If it's intellectual, then it goes into the Dharma one. Then it goes into the teachings one. This is a really important distinction in our community, is that we do have teachings about ultimate reality and we study sacred scriptures and all this kind of stuff, but that isn't the same thing as the experience of it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't go into the Buddha jewel. It becomes the Buddha jewel when it becomes our actual lived experience. So that's why if we're going to put a deity in that spot, we put the Kundalini Shakti, because it's, by its very definition, something that is inside of us. So that's essential. And having a lived and awakened relationship with that is essential on the spiritual path. It should go without saying, and maybe it even sounds really obvious to you, but so often people on the spiritual path don't actually have that lived experience. Mm-hmm. They have the teachings and they have this intense belief, but they haven't actually seen God. And if they have, I'm using that word sloppily, God, Goddess, Grace, Guru, the greatness of all, any of these G words. Maybe they've seen it, but they don't have it. They don't necessarily know it. They haven't become it in their being. So that one is essential. That Buddha one. I haven't named them. You remember the three jewels of Buddhism and then just replace. we're like one of these birds that takes over another bird's nest?
Brown-headed cowbird.
Hmm?
Brown-headed cowbird.
A brown-headed cowbird. Thank you. You just showed me my spirit animal. I love everything about it. Everything from the brown-headed to the cow.
That's great.
So that's the Buddha one. And then there's the Dharma and the Sangha. The Dharma is similar to the Buddhist thing. It's our teachings and it's our practices. And Dharma has a bigger meaning than that. Like in Buddhism, Dharma, it just kind of means Buddhism. It's like oftentimes in Buddhist communities, they'll just say like, I found the Dharma. And you know, like since I'm in the Dharma, or now I'm trying to follow the Dharma. Dharma it can mean that. It can just mean religion. In India, the word Dharma can just mean religion, like Hindu Dharma, Muslim Dharma, Buddhist Dharma, you know, what do you follow? But Dharma is a big word. And Dharma with a capital D, because it's not a D, it's not a D, it's a DH. Duh. A capital D, Dharma, it's the nature of all things. It's the ordering of all things. It's the way that things work in harmony with each other. Dharma is that force that makes the planets revolve around each other and makes our heart beat, and in the way that it beats, and puts us together and weaves us and stitches us together, stitch by stitch. That's Dharma, the way that things are stitched together like that. The way that the universe is interrelated and working with each other. That's Dharma. It's like Tao. It's like the Chinese word Tao in the sense of its broadness and its bigness. So then within that big Dharma, there's an idea called Swadharma. Swadharma means one's own Dharma. Now we're getting back to those three pillars. That within the Dharma, within the teachings and the practices that we learn on the path, part of the Dharma jewel is your Dharma. That you have a receptacle for all of this. That like, you know what your purpose is and you're on that path. And so the teachings and practices that are going to support an elementary school teacher are different teachings and practices that are going to support the mom of that elementary school teacher, or the mom of the elementary school student. And for them to be really clear about my Dharma is to be a teacher, my Dharma is to be a mom, that's going to really deeply inform the teachings. Like in our community, it's very broad. We draw on a broad swath of mystical teachings and practices. And I'm hopefully never going to say, these are our 10 teachings, these are our 2 practices. That is branding. That's capitalism. That's sectarian violence in a subtle way. When we say, this is what meditation is, this is not what it is. Meditation is fabulous, but the meditation for the 95-year-old in hospice is a different meditation than the 25-year-old on Wall Street. Even though there are some things that they will definitely be able to share. Okay, so Dharma. And as far as the teachings go, that's also a very broad thing. And I'm not going to brand it. I'm not going to say, in our community, we follow this lineage of Shakta, Tantra teachings, because this tradition has never been like that. Teachers just teach whatever works for them first, and then for the people that are in front of them. And then those in front of them that become teachers, they take what worked for them and they teach that to people that are in front of them. That is what I think of as the more valuable sort of lineage than the lineage of the Vatican. This is the canon. Now I've gone through the training of the canon, now I'm a holder of the canon. Now the next generation gets that same canon of this yogic lineage is much more organic. That's the Dharma. Then the Sangha, the community, is very essential, but it's not just like that you have other people that you're practicing with, or other people that believe the same thing as you. Again, that's a religion. That's a club.
Cult.
That's a cult. That's a mob. Mob mentality. The Sangha, a healthy Sangha will have three main elements to it. One element are your peers. Four main elements, sorry. I'm stuck in threes. But the Sangha will have these four main elements. One are your peers. It's just like the people that you're practicing with, the people that you're moving along with. But then, along with your peers, in that community, if it's a healthy one, there will be senior community members and there will be junior community members. So there will be people that have been doing this for longer than you, that can inspire you, that can support you, that can nurture you in that way, and also like help you steer away from some pitfalls, perhaps. And then there will be junior people that are coming up behind you, to whom you have a responsibility. So you're not just here checked out, but you're here understanding that like you're absorbing something in a way that is going to affect people that come after you. And within these three levels of the Sangha, some people are teachers to some degree or another, but I put a fourth category of the Sangha there of the teacher with a capital T. I think that the teacher is essential. I humbly say so, sitting in the teacher's seat. I don't think that it belongs in the Buddha jewel. And I know that when the teacher finds his or herself in the Buddha jewel, there's trouble. Sometimes the disciple might put the teacher in the Buddha jewel, in meditation, in the subtle realms, hopefully like a teacher that's like been dead for 50, 60 years. You can't disappoint them anymore. Okay, so like my guru's guru, he's in my Buddha jewel. I don't receive any teachings from him, not much. He's like a deity almost for me. But that's a very safe distance. The teacher that I'm talking about needs to be in the Sangha jewel, because we're in community together. I have a different role than just another senior community member, because I'm taking on a different level of responsibility. And I have a training that is specifically about being a teacher. It's not just that I am more of an expert or more of a practitioner, or I've spent more time doing this. It's not that. It's that it's like we teachers, in this sense of the word teacher, we take on this role that is, it's not just like a presenter. Here I'm called a presenter. I'm a presenter, this author is a presenter, this other person that's like the CEO of a training company, they're a presenter, But our roles are different. And so my guru made me a teacher and endowed me with the training, but also the responsibility to be able to like actually be with you like in your process and hold you accountable in a way that is intense and hopefully has a longevity to it. And this is one of the things that is missing so much in today's spiritual landscape. Other religions, they kind of have it. Like Christians, they have this idea, especially evangelical Christians, they have this idea like the pastor. And like the pastor is like they're in their community, but they also are in a kind of a seat of authority. And believe it or not, some Christian pastors are good. Right? And there's this like relationship that's there, but it's like this trust, and you can just feel everyone like pucker when I'm talking about like evangelical Christian pastors. Good, we should pucker a little bit. But there's something that is missing in our yoga meditation world where there are like big stage gurus and like people that just call themselves gurus. They even call themselves Sadguru. So funny that, anyway, but like there's that thing, and almost all of those go over the cliff these days. We're like in this era where that model of like the guru on the pedestal, the guru in the jewel seat, just doesn't hold up. So we have those, and then we have a lot of like blind leading the blind kind of situations where it's just people kind of helping each other, but not in a, you know, like the person who is a yoga teachings business runner. I'm not putting it down either, understand. I'm being contrarian, I'm a contrarian teacher, but I'm not putting that thing down. I'm just saying that that relationship is a financial one. Their people are not their students, their people are their customers. The group is not a community, it's a customer base. And if the commerce stops, the relationship is over. In this thing that I'm talking about, there is still an exchange of money. There's still like the apparatus of like registering for things and paying for things and being in email lists and all that kind of thing. But the relationship that I'm in from this side is one in which there's this commitment available and this relationship available that is beyond that contract. The contract keeps it all clean. The contract keeps it boundaried in a really good way. You pay me. It's not just that I love you and you love me and you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing so you can keep coming. It's no. You sign up for something, you pay me. We go into these training arrangements, and we come in and out of them. Like a lot of you've come in and out of things for years and years and years. But that relationship remains. And within that is the understanding that I am going to keep my commitment to being here as that, without the expectation that I'm going to be a perfect human being, without the expectation that all my shit's going to work out and all my relationships are going to work out, and that, no, it's not that. I'm not the balm for your father wound. Maybe a little bit sometimes. but that's not what the arrangement is. The arrangement is that I sit and I hold the seat of this work, and I represent the Dharma to the best of my ability, and when I drop it, I pick it back up. When I drop it, I pick it back up, so that I can be there like as an anchor for you. Never given this talk before in 25 years of teaching.
It's really
Right?
good. It's really good. It's really good.
Thank you. So And whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, we need teachers. And I really believe that we need to be omnivorous seekers these days. I think the day of just having like one teacher, one system, one thing that we do, again, I think that is outdated and very problematic. I think that we need to be omnivorous. And if you find any deep seeker, maybe they're doing some kind of primary spiritual work, but then they're also in therapy. And they're also, doing this other somatic experiencing thing. And they're also learning to speak Italian. And like all of this is part of their salad of spirituality that they're doing. But it needs to have these different elements to it. But one of the elements into that needs to be a teacher with a capital T. Like somebody that you can say, my teacher. Somebody that you can say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this somatic experiencing thing. It seems kind of like this other thing that we've learned. Is it like that? Somebody that when you're really in the shit, like really in the shit, that you can reach out to. And that's not going to judge you. That's not going to themselves freak out. And if we do, we drop it, we pick it back up. So the teacher within the Sangha, but having that Sangha is so essential. The opposite of it is what's done so much these days, which is just people at home on the internet by themselves, DIY. They're doing that omnivorous thing, but there's no accountability. There's no other people that they're doing it with, and there's no authority that is like helping to stitch it together or helping to call bullshit, because everything that we find online is going to be marketed really well. That's the thing, is that every intervention that we find, every spiritual practice, every healing modality these days is held by an entrepreneur. And we're all hungry, all of us. And we're all going to say, we've got what you need. And look at how groovy it is. And so without having community, including a teacher, then we're just like, fish in a barrel. So, because we don't have infinite time, we don't have infinite money, we don't have infinite patience. And if we want to really be on a path of transformation, that's the assumption. If we're just like dabbling is awesome. It's great. And if we're just dabbling and we're just looking, I'm going to get inspired by this and I'm going to get inspired by that. And, this week I'm doing the Harshada Wagner, and next week I'm, going to do zip lining in Costa Rica. And, we're just like collecting experiences. That's a totally different thing. And that's totally great. But if we're really trying to be on a path of transformation, like if we hear these teachings and we learn these teachings and we think like me, when I was 17 and I saw Be Here Now, and my mom was dying of cancer, and I was like a year, not even, sober in Peoria, Illinois, and somebody showed me this book, Be Here Now, Ram Dass's book. They have it in the bookstore. And I just said, I want to be a yogi. I didn't even know what a yogi was. But I saw the picture of Bhagwan Das, when he was young, like hot. He was super hot in this picture, right? And Be Here Now. Another one of the sort of my elder, totally crazy uncles. He's still around. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But I just saw that, and it was like, this is what I want. I want to be a yogi. And I followed his book, and that kind of like shepherded me through my mom's death. And I experienced my mom's death, which was very gruesome, in a very sacred way. That was a huge initiation for me. And then I was like, well, but I need a guru according to this, and I'm not going to find a guru here these days. So I kind of shelved it a little bit and went off to art school. But as soon as I met a teacher who had something, he had years and years of sadhana. He was a professor in my college. He was a disciple of my guru's guru. He was writing checks that I could cash. He had the money in the bank. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like when he was giving these teachings, he wasn't just saying, this book says this, and I believe this is true. He was saying, this is my experience, and here's some things some other ways that the teachings have said this, and this is what I've learned from my guru. And I started to like catch it, and I was just like, I want what you have. What is it? Like, just introduce me to your teacher. It wasn't that fast, but it was much sloppier than that. It took a long process. But every stage of the way, it's like, I've been really clear that I don't want anything extra. The symbol in our community, one of them, in the name of the book imprint that I'm in the process of creating, is Chataka. It's called Chataka Press. And the Chataka is this bird, it's a legendary bird in India, that only will drink water from the sky. And it'll die of thirst if it doesn't get rainwater. It only rains in India during certain seasons. So there's all this beautiful poetry of the Chataka just with its head turned upwards and its mouth open, about to die, waiting for one drop of rain. Symbolic sometimes of like romantic love, but oftentimes symbolic of that one substance. Not an extra thing, not a dabbly thing, not just an inspirational thing, but like that real transformation. What's the real shit? Like and I don't care if it comes from an Indian guru or it comes from an evangelical pastor or it comes from a scientist or it comes from an artist. I don't care. I'm incredibly omnivorous and I'm incredibly tuned into that raindrop like the Chataka bird now. But I have to have it. I have to have it. But between that 17-year-old boy there and this 51-year-old man here, I've paid my dues following bullshit, looking for that real thing. And so that's what we want to look for. And whether that's with me as your teacher, and this is a community for you, or you find that community somewhere else, if you want to have transformation and you want to be on that path, you need to be a Chataka bird. That where you're clear about what you're after and you're uncompromising in going after it. And look, you also get to have a half-ass and a dimmer switch. The half-ass means assuming that you know what you're after and you're going after it. A half-ass 10-minute meditation is so much more valuable than zero meditation. Don't blow off 10-minute meditations waiting for that day when you can do your 60-minute grand poobah meditation. I've done that too. That's the half-ass. It's better to do something half-assed than to do nothing at all. The dimmer switch is also a very valuable thing on the path, which is the awareness that spiritual transformation happens very gradually. It's not like a switch that flips on and off. Sometimes it feels like that, but it's not. It's like the dawn and the dusk. You can't even say when day has ended and night has begun. There's a long transition period in between. And what that means is that, so you can't be totally forgiving to this person. Can you be 5% more forgiving to this person? It's worth it. You can't, take this teaching, this high teaching, whatever it is, 100%. But can you do it 10%? Can you notice that today you're at 15% and tomorrow you're at 10%? And then the next day you're at 35%? And then it's such a gorgeous distinction, this dimmer switch thing. Because it gives you permission to be gradual, because that's how we are. Otherwise, we just give up. So many of us are going to go home from this retreat. I'm sorry to say, and this isn't a curse. May it be different for you, but so many of us are going to go and we're going to hit a bump in the carpet as soon as we walk in our door, or as soon as we stop for gas at Poughkeepsie, or whatever the first thing is. We get an email from our ex, or our boss, or our client, or whatever the thing is, and then it's going to feel like all of this is just gone. It's not. It's just that we've created this incredible energy field here and container here. And this has been a dimmer switch too. Like, you don't even necessarily know it. But if we were to take you and plop you back into your Friday night consciousness, it would probably feel very uncomfortable. Or if we were to take you Friday night and put you on your Monday morning consciousness, it would probably feel like you had taken a hit of something. And all of a sudden you're getting your swerve on. So for you, after the break, we'll take a minute for you to really contemplate what those three jewels can be for you. And the reason why they're called jewels, maybe you don't care about jewels, but whatever you find valuable, is that they're essential and they're incredibly valuable. The Buddha, which in this case means our actual experience of the divine, the indwelling Kundalini Shakti, or our actual experience of the power of the universe. Not the universe, the power of the universe. Because the universe is cancer and Nazis and all kinds of stuff. The universe is, don't make it the power of the universe. Because people say, oh, God, or the universe, or whatever. The universe includes some pretty gnarly stuff. The power of the universe, if you actually have a direct connection to that, then that's the Buddha. If you, to whatever extent you have a connection with that awakening Shakti within you, that's the Buddha jewel. The Sangha, which is the people that you're practicing with, the senior people, the junior people, your peers, and your teacher. And the Dharma, which is the teachings, the practices, but only those that fit with your Dharma. Only those that are applied to the way that you're walking in your life. Don't become a monk. Don't try to imitate. My teachers were all monks. Not all my teachers. Most of my gurus, my serious training teachers, they were monks. And so then when I'm getting into my own spiritual maturity as a householder, I was a little bit confused. I didn't have the support. I didn't have those teachings. If I were to put on a robe and sit in an ashram, I knew how to be that master. I didn't know how to be the master that was running around in New York City, 35 years old. Because I didn't see that. So you have to be the yogi that you are in your zone, in your context. And those things in your context are there to help you to grow. not to just be abandoned. So the Dharma are the teachings and the practices that help you with that.